Hello, and welcome to the Food Security for Equitable Futures expert interview video series. In this series, we interview experts in the field of food insecurity to gain a non-technical understanding of this pressing social problem and how it can be addressed. I'm Jasmine Fledderjohann. I'm a senior lecturer at Lancaster University in the UK, and I'm the principal investigator on this project. I'm happy to be here with a leading expert in food insecurity. So please, can I ask you to tell us just a little bit about yourself, starting with your name, your current institution, and your areas of interest?
Um, Hello, my name is Thuy, and I'm working at the Institute of Public Health in Ho Chi Minh City. My organization belongs to the Ministry of Health of Vietnam, and I'm working at the Department of Epidemiology. My major is about public health nutrition, and my main research areas focus mainly on food security, malnutrition, um, food-borne diseases, and also water-borne diseases.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you. And do you have any particular expertise in specific countries or within Vietnam specific regions?
Um, my expertise is mainly on Vietnam, in Vietnam, and because my organization is located in the south of Vietnam, so my organization is responsible for protecting and promoting health for people in the south of Vietnam. Um, I have 15 years working on the at my institution, and I conducted research mainly on food security and determinants of food security and its impacts on the people's health. Also, the relationship between food insecurity and water sanitation, and the compounding impacts of structural factors of food insecurity on people. Yeah.
That's great, thank you. So I'd love to hear, obviously you have really rich experience in your current role, rich experience with research, and a strong sense of food insecurity in Vietnam and in the southern region as well. So I wonder if you could say a little bit more, please, about what you think the biggest food insecurity challenge Vietnam will face in the next years is. Sort of thinking both about short-term challenges that Vietnam is facing with food insecurity and also maybe long-term challenges as well.
Mhm. Um, for me, I think food security in Vietnam and also other low and middle income countries will share similar challenges because these countries are, share the similar socio-economic context, and agriculture is the main economy of these countries. So I think the biggest challenge for food security in Vietnam will be, the drivers that impacts on the agricultural production, such as uh, the biggest one is the climate variability and extremes, and the economic instability, and the high price of I think agricultural inputs that impact the agricultural production. The farmers cannot access to agricultural inputs to increase their yield, or to increase the quality of the agricultural products so that they can get higher incomes and higher returns from their production. Also, in Vietnam, we have, especially in the south of Vietnam, let's take Vietnamese Mekong Delta as an example, because Vietnamese Mekong Delta is the biggest producer of agricultural products in Vietnam for domestic use and for international exports. Um, but we always face the lack of fresh water for agriculture production due to the climate climate variability, and also because the neighborhood countries, they build the water reservoir, so that affects the flows of water in the Mekong River Delta. So yeah.
Mm.
And also we have slow agricultural innovations.
Okay.
Yeah, and the quality of natural resources like land and water seriously affected by agricultural production, like overuse of chemicals. And I think food security in Vietnam is also have to, feed a large population. We have 90 million people, and the number of the population maybe keep increasing in the next few years.
Mm.
Yeah.
So that's a really complex set of issues.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem. Although we are the largest rice exporter in the world, but I think food security in Vietnam in the next few years will be challenged so much because also the pandemic um, and people now they they move out of agricultural sector because they move out of their local areas, usually work on agriculture to move on industrial zone because it gets higher income. So I think it's also a problem.
So you think there'll be a decline in production as well linked to that?
Yeah, yes.
So obviously there are a lot of complex problems coming together there. Obviously this is a hugely important topic. What can be done to reduce food insecurity in the future? Is there any way to tackle some of these problems?
Yeah, I think many experts have recommended many solutions, and I think several can be applied to Vietnam. Um, I think the climate smart agriculture would be the best solution for Vietnam because it helps to produce more affordable healthy foods for the people, and also um, it will uh, protect the environment, and also can help to rehabilitate the environment, and it also um, um, I think it will help the farmers to get higher incomes. So when they have a higher income, they can buy foods, they can have a better access to food. So yeah, I think it will help to improve food security in Vietnam. And also, I think reduce food waste is also a good way to have to improve to secure food security in Vietnam because um, I see a lot of foods are wasted. We produce enough food, but I think the distribution of food is problematic. So the poor cannot access to food, while the rich is wasted the food.
And is that something that you think is happening in both rural and urban areas? Is there a rural-urban divide in food waste?
I think I won't say that urban rural, but I will say that the area have economically developed areas. Like in Vietnam, although people living in the rural areas, but in rural area we have economically developed area and the remote area. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So you mentioned the importance of sustainability, and I know a little earlier you also mentioned challenges around water, use of pesticides and industrial chemicals. Seems like these are all very sort of interlinked issues. Going forward, what would you say in terms of how agricultural practices can be better structured, thinking about sort of who's farming and what sorts of changes will need to be made on the ground level?
Um, so the farmers are so the people in the rural areas are doing agricultural production, and the Ministry of Agriculture is responsible for mainly they are mainly responsible for helping the farmers. Um, so the tackles, as I said, because firstly, in terms of the farmers, they have low education, they have weak, weak livelihood access ownership, and they are, I think they are resistant to the new technology. Some farmers are resistant to new technology, and so they want to apply, or maybe because they don't have enough money to apply the new technology. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
we lack of, we lack of trainers, and we lack of finance to support the farmers to better in their agricultural production.
Okay. So I know you mentioned COVID-19 also as a big challenge, and I'd like to come back to that because obviously COVID-19 is something that's just had global implications, and I think actually has raised some awareness of food insecurity in many places. So I just wondered if you could speak a little bit more, please, about the impact of COVID-19 that you've seen through your work and maybe personally as well.
Yeah, I think most of us can feel the profound impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. So, firstly, as I seen that the mobility restriction and lockdown has a limited access to sufficient and nutritious food for people in the lockdown areas, and because there are some, safety and safety regulations to protect people from infected by COVID-19, by the COVID. So this regulation has disrupted the food system, especially the food distribution system. So people cannot, access to food. So, and some regulation impacted on the availability, accessibility, and of the people. Okay. And I think in the pandemic crisis time, hoarding behaviors degraded the diet diversity and the healthy food choice, because people want to restore the food that are last longer. And usually these are the food that are high in sugar, high in fat, and high in calories. So it may lead to obesity and other diseases in the future.
And do you think there are any groups that were especially heavily impacted by COVID-19? Did it have unequal impacts?
Yeah, definitely. So in my country, in Vietnam, the vulnerable groups include, firstly, the disabled, because they cannot access to food, they cannot go to the market buy food, and in the lockdown areas, even they are, suffer from hunger, and the laborers, the daily wage laborers, so they loss of jobs, and they have low incomes, and the poor, across the poor, and the pregnancy women, the pregnant women, they are the people who are mostly affected by the pandemic.
Okay. And do you think that COVID-19 has had any impact on agricultural production?
Yes, of course. When the pandemic crisis time in the fourth wave of COVID-19 in Vietnam, the agricultural production is disrupted, because that they have no agricultural inputs at that time. So the provinces between there is lockdown between provinces, between village and village, between household and household. So, and with the people who have already produced a lot of food, they get bankrupt because they cannot sell their products, so they have no, finance to continue their farming, their business.
That seems like it'll have very long-term consequences as well, in terms of sort of long-term economic well-being and ability to invest in agricultural production the next year.
Yeah, I think it will have prolonged impacts on the people's business. Yeah.
So obviously there are a lot of things we do know about food insecurity, a lot of things that you have worked on in your research. But what don't we know? What's the biggest gap in our knowledge about food insecurity? Or what would you like to see us generate more research evidence on?
Mhm. For my experience, I think I will say about lower and middle income countries and also Vietnam is similar. So I think there are a lot of studies on food security at the national level. I mean that research focused on investigating the determinants of food availability at the national level, but the research into lower scales, like at the household level or individual levels, are limited. And also the other dimensions of food security, like utilization, stability, um, accessibility, also get little attention. Like in Vietnam, most of our research is about food production and especially agricultural production. It means that it's just about availability. But now I think the high level panel of experts on food security already recommended two more dimensions of food security, agency and governance. And I think these will be the big gaps research in now and in the future. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So lots of research at the sort of higher level, macro level, what's going on structurally, but not nearly as much that's understood in what's happening in people's day-to-day lives and in their households.
Yeah. Let me tell you something a little bit so that the picture is clearer. So in my country, um, the national data just recorded 9%, around 9% of the people suffer from undernourishment. But the studies, the research in rural areas showed us at least 1 in 3 households experience some degree of food insecurity in the last month. And in my study, in the Vietnamese Mekong Delta, so 1 in 2 households experienced some degree of food insecurity at some point of the last year.
Okay.
So
And
if
this is
we,
research that's just come out.
yeah, pardon?
So this is just in like 2021. This is current research that's just come.
Yeah. So we can see the big gap between the national level and the household level. And if we focus on the individual's level, I think the picture will be different, more different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's quite a staggering difference, isn't it? 9% versus 1 in 3.
Yeah, because 9% that just represent for the most severe food insecure category. So it just capture the most severe food insecure category.
Okay. And would you say in terms of national level monitoring of food insecurity, is that the main focus, the most severe food insecurity?
Yes, the more focus of the Vietnam's food security is national food production. So the Vietnam policy aims to produce more food and get low income for the especially for the farmers, so that they can secure the food for everyone. But
Okay.
they don't mention anything about household food insecurity. So it means that the distribution of food may be inequitable.
Okay. Okay.
And I think this is a big
Uh,
gap.
and in terms of your research, have you been able to identify any particular groups that are more vulnerable to food insecurity, that experience higher rates?
Yes, yes. So I have a study on food insecurity in the urban area in Ho Chi Minh City. I'm fortunate to have chance to conduct research in an urban area and in rural areas. So I can see the picture clearer. So in urban areas, I found that my study found that um, the laborers, the laborers are the most vulnerable to food insecurity. And in the rural areas, my studies show that the ethnic minority groups, yes, the ethnic minority group and the landless people. The landless people
Okay.
are more vulnerable to food insecurity.
Okay. And in thinking about those groups, are they mainly relying on purchasing food in order to meet their food needs, or how are they accessing food?
Yeah, um, most of them buy food from the markets, and as I said, they are landless, so they don't have they cannot farm, so they cannot produce their own food, and because and also they people who are poor, so they cannot access they can buy they can purchase the food. Yeah.
That must have been especially difficult with COVID-19 and lockdowns and difficulties with supply chains.
Yes. So people who are poor, um, they have to take food from the neighborhood or charity organizations, or they seek for the wild foods. But the problem is that the wild food is decreased because of agricultural activities, like because to intensify agriculture production, the the local authority built, I mean that the agency, the authority built the irrigation system, um, also they use agricultural chemicals so that destroy the wild foods such as fish or crabs or wild vegetables. So it makes the poor, harder to access to food.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess that sort of brings us naturally to my next question, which is how can we address food insecurity? Thinking, first of all, from a social policy perspective, what can the government do to address some of these problems, to address food insecurity?
I think social policy play a key role in fostering food security in Vietnam, because social policy can help to reduce hunger and reduce poverty, and also it can help to address other structural determinants of food insecurity such as low income, landless, or the land tenure, the inequalities like between the women and the men in getting the productive access, and um, and I think social policy can also protect people from um, protect the most vulnerable people from being hungry in crisis time, in acute food shortage,
Yeah.
and and I think also social policy can contribute to reduce the gaps between the rich and the poor, or between other inequalities and imbalances within the food system.
Okay. Okay. Are there any particular policies that you would want to see?
Um, I think for my experience when I doing my research, when I did my research, is that I would like to see the government will change the land tenure policy, um, because in my study I see the differences between food security and diet diversity between the area that have a diverse farming, diverse diverse farming, and area that just have rice as the main production. So the household in the area that just grow rice, they are more likely to be food insecure compared to the household in the area that have diverse farming, although they have similar, socio-economic position. So, yeah,
Okay.
That's
Oh, sorry. And from a sustainability standpoint, it seems like actually that diversification is important also
yes,
for for
yes.
climate change and addressing climate change.
I think
Um,
so, and I think the um, uh, I think the government should have the stable price, market price, stable market price, um, and they should have policies to protect farmers from bankruptcy when they have in crisis time. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, particularly, it seems like COVID-19 has been a good example of the importance of that sort of safety net, really.
yeah, yeah.
So that's it gives me a helpful idea of what the government can do. What about members of the public? What if they're just individual people who want to do something about food insecurity? They hear about this problem and they want to take action. What can members of the public do?
So you mean that when the individuals see the food insecurity problem in Vietnam and they want to contribute their help with the
Yeah,
government, they want to share the help with the government? Yeah, I
yeah.
think it's very good. It's very good because um, now I see some startup companies that the young people they start their business, and I think that is also a good way to help the government to ensure to help the government to ensure food security for people. Um, and these, I think, the private sectors, they they can share they can share their knowledge, capacities, and resources with the government. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in ensuring food for people, and um, because and so I'm thinking about the PPS. It means that the public-private partnership,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's a really a good model for Vietnam in the future to for the food policy, food security policies, because the private sector can share the risk, the cost, and the resources with the government in ensuring food for people.
Mm-hmm. And are you thinking mainly, when you're thinking about the private aspect of that, are you thinking mainly of companies that are involved in agriculture, or is there a role for companies that aren't necessarily linked to agriculture also?
Yeah, they will involve in the agriculture production and delivery the products for the farmers. Help the farmers to get access to the high technology agriculture innovation so that they can increase their quality of products, agricultural products, so they can export their products and get higher returns. And it will motivate the farmers to produce better foods, uh, more healthy foods for the people. Yeah, I think the private sector can help, can give, can help a lot for the government, the public areas, because the public areas has so many jobs to do, not only food
Mm.
security, also education. Yeah, it, many things.
Yeah, yeah. So I just have one more question for you, which is, you've said a bit about your work, you've talked about some of your recent results. I'd love to hear a bit more about what your future plans are for your work on food insecurity. What are you going to be working on in the coming months or maybe even the coming years?
Yeah. Uh, Actually, I'm very ambitious about my future career. So, I just have graduated from PhD, and the experience on my PhD study motivate me a lot of things to do. So, firstly, I would like to conduct a research to validate the household food insecurity experiment scale, which is, very common now for monitoring food insecurity at the household level for Vietnam for use. Because now we don't have any tools, any valid tools for monitoring food insecurity at the household level. And Um, uh, and the second one I will do is I'm thinking about dry a proposal to get budget to to build a model to reduce food insecurity for the ethnic minority groups in the south of Vietnam. That is the Khmer group, the Khmer ethnic minority that my study found out they are the most affected. Uh, yeah, the most severe, the most affected by food insecurity. And also, I will, I would like to research on um, the the I want to have I want to write a proposal that have a focus on the coherent collaboration policies between um, the actors within the food system and also across sectors like agriculture, food, health, education, and social protection. Because now in my country there is a lack of collaboration between them, and there is no policy or no legal framework to connect them together to ensure food security for people. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
that's my ambition.
Okay, well, that's great. Yeah, it's a great ambitious set of ideas that you've got there. Congratulations on completing your PhD. That's fantastic. And thank you so much for sharing your time and for sharing your expertise. It's been a hugely helpful, informative conversation. Um, I'll say goodbye and thank you for now, but I really look forward to seeing more of your work in the future.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for your time too. Yeah.
Thank you.